All right, hello. My name is Jeremiah, and I am a theology student out of the University of Toronto. And like many of you out there, I am just really trying to come to grips with this whole Jordan Peterson phenomenon. And I've just been blown away by the whole movement, the amount of people who are talking about it, and the ideas that Peterson himself has been putting forward. And I'm really looking forward to engaging and dialoguing with people and just figuring out where this is all going. I've been watching a few videos by a pastor named Paul VanderKlay, and he seems to want to ask whether Jordan Peterson's the next C.S. Lewis or the next Billy Graham or something like that. It's a really interesting phenomenon, and I'm here to discuss his ideas and then also just to discuss the movement itself. I guess first thing I just want to explain how I came across Jordan Peterson. And I guess you could call it my red pill moment, the moment I sort of realized that what he was doing wasn't just the same old, same old. He was doing something very new and innovative and reaching people that normally don't hear religious texts and normally don't, I guess, encounter them or interpret them in a very positive way, at least for a lot of people. So how I came across Jordan Peterson was I was reading First Things magazine online, and First Things, for those of you who don't know, is a Catholic journal of religion and public life, and it would be on the conservative side, I suppose, of things. But it also has some post-liberal kind of elements to it as well. But I was reading this First Things article, and it was talking about how increasingly people are getting their news from other sites besides kind of the mainstream media. And it went through a list of various people, and Jordan Peterson was, I think, third on the list or something. And I was just checking each of them out, each of these people out, just seeing what they had to say. And this was a few days after the famous interview, the Cathy Newman interview, and that had just came out, and I saw, how many views it had, and I watched it. I think I watched it 2 times, and it really kind of shook me, how one-sided things had become, and how much I respected this man who wasn't getting angry, he wasn't getting upset, he was just, no, that's not what I'm saying. He would just kind of counter and reframe the argument, and I just really appreciated kind of how he handled himself in that interview. But I guess the one thing that really struck me, and this was in a different video, and this was maybe kind of a turning point for me, was that he said things that I realized that we no longer can say in society. And this is what really interested me about him, was that he was opening up channels of thinking that were different and had become closed off because we developed these blinders in our way of thinking. When we're told something is kind of off limits so many times, we start to just kind of believe it, even if we don't really believe it. The question, I guess, that I was wrestling with, I had read something the day before about suffering and about happiness, and it talked about how in our Western society we no longer, thankfully, take any meaning out of suffering, or we no longer kind of consider it part of the equation of meaning. And now we just consider it something that needs to be pushed to the side and eliminated and almost forgotten about. And when I was watching a Jordan Peterson video, he said that, you know, happiness isn't enough to counter suffering. It doesn't kind of offset the equation or the balance. And he said that you actually have to have meaning that is strong enough to kind of counter it, to withstand it, to overcome it, to put it in its place. And I thought this was really fascinating that he, you know, can you say that now? Can you say that there is meaning in this world that is enough to overcome or offset all the suffering and bad things that happen in this world? And the fact that Jordan just so plainly said, yes, we need meaning that is greater than the suffering of the world. And like, this is a classic argument of, you know, of theodicy, right? Of saying, you know, like this can't be a meaningful world, or, you know, a world created by God, because there's just too much suffering, right? And it's almost like this had been, to say that the world is meaningful enough to counter suffering had almost been taken off the table. And even in a lot of classes that I had taken and people I had talked with, no one really wanted to say this anymore, because we're so woke to the suffering of the world that we almost, if we say that we need to have meaning that can somehow counter it, we're almost saying that suffering is not that big a deal. And it is a big deal. But for Jordan, it was interesting that Peterson said that, you know, that these things kind of balance each other out, and that meaning has to be big enough and inspiring enough to drag you past or through your suffering. And that's definitely a different tact than what's common today, where we point out suffering and we try and reduce it, but we never talk about potential meaning to be derived from it, or talk about, just that connection between moving forward in your life and suffering. And it seemed like Jordan Peterson really got that. And that might seem like a strange thing to dwell on, but for me, that was really kind of it. That was the moment where I told myself, like, that you can be free to think about these things again. And of course, there was lots of other ones, particularly regarding things like gender and just free speech issues in general. There's a lot there to think about. And I hope to make a bunch more videos about various topics in Christian theology. I was reading I was listening to his lectures on Genesis, and the imagery that he pulls from the snake and the garden, and it's really deep. And the interesting thing for me is that I've actually found a lot of resonance with the church fathers and Jordan Peterson. That they like to read a little more allegorically, and I think this would be something that I'm interested in bringing these two sides together and letting them kind of speak to each other. So hopefully in the future I can do that. And the other thing that interests me was archetypes, and this is kind of the core of his thinking. And in theological hermeneutics today, a really big, interesting topic, a burgeoning topic, emerging topic, is the notion of typological readings of Scripture, and how typology and types and figures in Scripture work. And archetypes and typology would seem to have a lot in common. So I really hope that these videos can be of help to you, and that together we can unpack what Jordan Peterson means for for the Christian faith and for people of faith, and where this whole thing is going. And I look forward to traveling there with you. But yeah, I look forward to your engagement in the comments, and I'd love talking to you about anything Jordan Peterson, anything theology or church related. So yeah, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.